Saturday night in Clemson, South Carolina, the Clemson Tigers, number 5 Clemson Tigers beat the number 10 NC State WolfPack in a thriller in Death Valley, 30-20. I'm going to dive into that game here in just a moment, but first, thank you for joining me on this new channel, Not Bobby Durkins. I'm Brian Knight, and I do appreciate you hopping in here. Subscribe if you haven't, and pass it along to anyone who likes to talk college football, especially Clemson football. Now, just a disclaimer here. The reason that I am doing this reaction on the following Tuesday instead of the night of is because this is a smaller channel. Because it's a smaller channel, I cannot live stream right now. That's one of those YouTube things. So just to let you know, get me to 1,000 subscribers and it'll be easier to live stream, and then boom, I'll do quicker reactions. But I'm working with what I got here, and what I'm happy to work with is that Clemson won. Clemson won the ball game, allowing only 34 rushing yards. Now, I want you to think about this. Brian Bresee did not play due to kidney complications. He's going to miss the game against Boston College. Xavier Thomas, which I'm pulling for XT. I want to see XT back, but he has just had so many issues over the past 2 or 3 years, and I hope the guy can become well, because he's one beast of an athlete. But he didn't play the other night. Most importantly, aside from those two things, I won't say most importantly, but aside from those two players missing, Andrew Makuba does start the game, but he gets ejected in the second quarter for a targeting, which if someone says targeting one more time, I want to throw up because I'm sick of it. I've seen a lot of games outside of Clemson be ruined by it, and I understand about safety and blah, 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 but I mean, I think that a lot of it is knick-knacky, and I just wish that we could just get away from it. But with that said, we're still missing Sheridan Jones. It was said that Sheridan Jones was actually going to play, but he didn't play. Malcolm Green did not play. So for all the talking heads that are on these very big shows who are paid a ton of money to talk about college football, very few of them even really talked in depth about Clemson missing basically 75% of their secondary on the Wake Forest game. And hardly any of them has talked about them missing 75% of their secondary for the majority of the NC State game. So I'm wondering, is this on purpose? Is it not on purpose? I mean, missing Brian Bresee is a big deal, but we're missing 3/4 of our secondary for a big game against Wake, and then this game against NC State. And in fact, if you want to really get down to the nitty-gritty of it, is NC State actually had an easier game as far as personnel goes with defense than Wake Forest did, because Bresee did play. So I know that there was Wake Forest played at home and NC State had to play away. We could talk about that, but I'm talking about personnel-wise. This is a big deal, and very few people are talking about it. Can you imagine if Alabama or Georgia or Ohio State was missing 75% of their secondary? Even though I'm not a fan of any of those teams, I have respect for them, but I don't have respect. I don't have a dog in the fight, so to speak, in any of those teams. If they were missing even 2 of the 4 secondary members, I mean, that is something to highly consider. Clemson is missing 3/4 of their secondary, and everybody else who's jogging out on the field, they are freshman players, or they are first-year players who was sitting behind Andrew Booth last year, or Mario Goodrich. That's a big deal. It's cute to say next man up, and I know that's something we all talk about, next man up and blah, 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 but there's a reason that the starters was starting. So recruiting well is incredible, but even a lot of these top recruits, they still have to get in. They have to get acclimated to the speed of the game, to actually what's going on in the game. And for Clemson to come out there and do what they did defensively, and you say, okay, 34 rushing yards, what does that have to do with the passing game? Well, obviously, if you can't run the ball well, they're just going to lock down on the passing, you know? But Clemson secondary is so depleted that you would think that they would attack the passing game more, and they didn't. I know they threw the ball a lot. I know they got some third down conversions that, once again, you saw the lack of experience, and you saw the lack of personnel. But Clemson's defense being able to lock down and limit only 34 rushing yards, and I know they didn't have Zonovan Knight from last year, but still, they have a really experienced offensive line, and they have a lot of starters on it. So and then you have, of course, Leary. So you're thinking that Leary's going to come out there and just sling the rock. He passed for 240, 245, threw an interception. DJ came out, broke 200 yards. He threw a touchdown, but he also was the leading rusher for the game. It wasn't Will Shipley, it was DJ. He rushed for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns. So when you step back and you look at this, even if you're not a Clemson fan, even if you're here just because you hate Clemson or you just hate Bobby Durkins and you want to give me crap too, but just take off the color of the lenses that you look at football teams through, meaning forget who you pull for a second. You would think that NC State would have done more on the offensive side of the ball, and they didn't. Which leads me to Wes Goodwin actually did a really good job for preparing for this game. Because that defensive unit, even though they gave up some big plays here, or I say big plays, I'm talking about big third down conversions. One of the big things that we can look at is that they did not give up a ton of yardage. They didn't give up a ton of points. If anybody was watching the game, they gave up that last touchdown in probably the last 3 or 4 minutes. So it was 30-13. Giving up a touchdown is giving up a touchdown. I'm not going to argue that. What I will argue is it was in the last 3 or 4 minutes of the game. So Clemson's defense looked even depleted, missing so many players. Brissy is a leader on the field. Makuba, man, he's just like a general, a field general, and he's a true sophomore. Missing Sheridan Jones, missing all those players. I'm telling you, it really lets you know that Wes Goodwin is working to ensure that Clemson's coming out ready no matter who their personnel is. So that was really big for me. Another takeaway, DJ came out, played his butt off. I know he didn't sling the rock for 400 yards and 7 touchdowns, but I'm telling you, he had control of the game. He had control of his team. He made the right decisions, and it was incredible. The leading receiver for the game was Jake Brenningstool, 6'6" tight end. He's our second string tight end. Somebody in one of my comment sections said, "It's good to see us get the tight ends involved." Amen. It is so good to see our tight ends getting involved. They are. I think they're some of the best receivers on the team. They're some of the best pass catchers on the team, but they're not little dudes. These are not, he's 6'1" and kind of stocky, and we put him at tight end or something. These guys are big dudes, but they can really catch the football. Very much NFL style tight ends. And Davis Allen has always been fantastic, but see Brenningstool come along. This is a big deal. We saw some great pass catches. Really didn't see as many drops as we have in past games, and definitely nothing like last year. Of course, there was a few drops. I think that's getting corrected. The good news here is that Clemson looks like they're coming to a midseason form, and both sides of the ball are beginning to click. So what should we do moving forward? Well, this is pretty simple, yet it can be very difficult. What we should continue, and I say we because I'm a fan, I spend money to go to the games, I put a lot of time into it, so I don't mind saying we because I've been pulling for them back in the early 90s when everything was gone to crap. But so Clemson needs to continue to fix their problems that they have. What do I mean by that? Continue to fix the offensive line. The offensive line has gotten better. In fact, this was the most experienced defense that they played against this entire season. So it looks like they're really pulling together. They just need to continue to grow in their assignments. They need to continue to grow together in their work as a unit. But as long as they'll continue to fulfill their role, as long as they'll continue to grow and get better, and really work together to protect DJ and open up the running lanes, I think that Clemson becomes more and more of a true, realistic national championship contender. And the idea is not laughable, because we both know, anybody who's watching this who's a football fan, no matter who you pull for, you have to know in the back of your mind, if you cannot protect your quarterback and if you can't open up the running lanes, maybe overall talent can get you to the college football playoff, but pulling for a team that's been there for 6 consecutive years and only missed this past year, I can tell you, any deficiency, especially on the offensive line, will be exposed in the college football playoff. And you can take that to the bank, deposit it, and it will not depreciate. It's always going to happen. Our running backs are still looking solid. Good to see Maffa run the ball more. Pace doesn't have the some of the fire that he had last year. I don't know if he's dealing with any physical problems, but obviously we have Shipley doing amazing things. But it's good to have that number 2 back coming in who's really strong, who presents a real problem in the game, and that's Maffa. Maffa is doing a great job. So anyway, special teams, we can't forget what BT Potter does. BT Potter has done so many great things. I think he had one miss the other night, but that guy is the best kicker, in my opinion, in Clemson history. I know we've had some great ones, but I'm telling you, I think he is definitely the best one. I will do a video talking about the Boston College matchup once again. Bresee will not be playing, and we don't know who's going to be coming back for the secondary. Xavier Thomas, unfortunately, I don't think he's going to play Saturday, but that's still up in the air. I hope for him that he actually gets to. So I'll do another video there. Once again, if you like this, subscribe, pass it along to anyone who likes to talk Clemson football or just likes to talk college football. I'm Brian Knight, and thank you for joining me on Not Bobby Durkins. Go Tigers.